All right, so I think we have a lot of you here, so let's get started. Everyone, first, a huge thank you and welcome to the UTR Powered by Oracle All Access Series, a free opportunity to connect and learn from some of the biggest names in tennis. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Prakash Amritraj. I played on the ATP Tour for about 10 years, and now I'm one of the faces for Tennis Channel. So even though there's no live tennis going on at the moment, Tennis Channel is still putting out great content every day from 9 to 12 Pacific time in the morning. We'll have Tennis Channel Live. I was on it last week talking about the greatest of all time. I'll be on again April 20th through the 24th. So tune in to Tennis Channel and TC Plus, the app. Now, to all the coaches out there, I want you guys all to stay tuned because UTR has a new virtual events initiative. It's coming soon for any coach out there, anywhere, to be able to create and host your own virtual events. Now, they can be for free or paid with all the proceeds going to the coaches. So go to myutr.com and sign up for free, and UTR will get you set up ASAP. Now, while we have our premiere episode today with our very special guest, remember, this All Access series will continue, and our next episode, Tuesday, April 7th at 2 p.m. Pacific time, we'll have Allison Risk, 19 in the world, and, well, she married my cousin. So my sister-in-law and I know each other very well. We'll get into some really interesting stuff. So please join us then as well. Now, today, just keep in mind, as we go through this webinar, you guys can keep sending in your questions. We'll select some of the more interesting ones to be able to get our guest to answer at the end of it. Now, I guess it's time to introduce the man, Sam Querrey, or Schoolboy Q, as I like to call him. Very, very impressive career. I've known him for quite some time, been as high as 11 in the world, semifinals of Wimbledon, defeated Novak Djokovic. He's been a stalwart of the U.S. Davis Cup team. Just a tremendous, tremendous career, and just one heck of a guy. And a new father. Him and Abby just had their first child. Beautiful name, Ford. So we welcome Sam Querrey to the show. Sam, how are we doing?
I'm doing as good as I can be. Like you said, I'm just busy at home with a new baby. And although I'm not playing tennis, it's fun to, be an interactive dad.
Well, first, before we get started, can I just ask you how you and Abby are doing at this time? I mean, of course, the whole world is kind of turned upside down, but you're all of a sudden a father, so that turns it upside down on itself.
Yeah, look, we're doing well. We were planning to we were going to go to Indian Wells as a family, and then I was going to go to Miami and Houston by myself, just because, you can't bring a 3-week-old on a plane yet. But things have changed like they've changed for everyone. So I'm just home with Abby, and we're raising a 6-week-old, and it's been great and it's been fun, and that's been really the I guess the blessing in disguise during this whole thing for me.
And if Abby was to give you marks on your job so far, have you been doing a decent job? Would she be proud of the job you're doing?
I think so. I mean, I keep the house really tidy. I do all the chores. Wherever I can help her, I try to help her.
Okay. Well, I'll double check and ask her later on. But Sam, listen, thank you so much for joining us. I really feel you're one of the guys that so many of the players out there, whatever age they are, or the parents, coaches, you can learn so much from, especially, having grown up in the same area as you and seen your journey. So, Sam, I'd love to start at the beginning. So first, tell everyone where you're from.
I was born in San Francisco. And so until I was 18, I lived in a few places. I lived in San Francisco, or kind of outside San Francisco, until I was about 7. I then moved to Las Vegas when I was 7 years old, till about 11 years old. And then at 11 years old, I moved out to Thousand Oaks in Southern California. And, and then at 18, started playing professional. And I've kind of gone back and forth between Las Vegas and Santa Monica since then. But for the most part, I say when someone asks me where I grew up, where I had the biggest tennis influence, it'd be Thousand Oaks in Southern California.
So would you say that that's where you played most of your tennis? When did the game start for you?
Yeah, I started playing when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, going to, the club that was down the street from us in Northern California. They'd have summer camps. We would go swimming and then play hide and go seek and then play some tennis and then go get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And that's kind of how I got into it. And then, that just kind of evolved, and I started to take some private lessons. And then really once I was 11 or 12 and was living in Thousand Oaks, and, that's when I started kind of playing 3-4 times a week. I took lessons, once or twice a week from my coach at the time, Tim Schneidley, who was great. I did really well and made the semifinals of the 12 and under hard courts, and then won the 14 and under hard courts. And, that's kind of where the ball really started to get rolling for me.
So you started playing tournaments quite early then, and now for everyone out there, when you talk about the 12 and under hard courts and the 14 and under hard courts, these are the biggest tournaments for that age group in the entire country.
Yeah, and I didn't just start there. I started playing local tournaments when I was probably 9. And Southern California, where I grew up, has a very rich tennis tradition. Almost every weekend you can find local tournaments that have good quality of players, and the competition's great. And then I started to do well enough in those, and then, like you said, got to play the 12 and under nationals from kids all over, then the 14 under nationals. I was still, at the time, I was playing tennis 3-4 times a week. I was still playing other sports as well, but tennis just kind of came the most natural to me, I would say. And I was winning a lot. And when you're that age, when you're winning, it's fun, and that's why I kept doing it.
What other sports did you play growing up? Please tell me you played basketball. I mean, I don't know if you were this height when you were that age.
I only played basketball for 1 year. I actually wasn't that good at basketball. I still, to this day, I do a lot of basketball drills and shooting around for workouts. But I played soccer, baseball. I played a year of football. I played golf growing up, and then just messing around. I mean, I played volleyball with my friends. I would. Other random sports. I'd ride bikes everywhere. I'd kind of do anything active growing up.
Was it ever a choice between, this sport or tennis, or did tennis just kind of stand out to you from the start?
Tennis stood out to me, and I played other sports until about 14. And then it was at that point, kind of when high school started, I played the first half. I played freshman year high school basketball, realized I wasn't that good, hung up the basketball career, and then really just started focusing on tennis just because, like you said, I was the best at tennis. It was obvious if I was going to go play a sport in college, tennis was going to be that sport.
Now, your parents, neither of them were pros, and you see so many parents who are players, they end up pushing their kids into the sport that they love the most. How did tennis even come into your life?
So when I was about 5, this is, 1992, 1993, we lived in this city called Santa Rosa outside of San Francisco. My parents just moved there. I was, 5 years old. I had a little sister who was 1 or 2, and my parents joined a tennis and swim club down the street from my house to meet friends and families and for something to do. And so that's kind of how I got into it. Like I said, that's where I started to do the tennis, swim, and kind of summer camps there. And my parents started to play tennis a little bit there. My mom joined a ladies league. My dad would play a little bit with the men in the afternoon. And so that's kind of where I got my start. So kind of going through my career, everything was new to not only me, but to my parents too. We had to kind of figure out how the junior tournaments work, the national tournaments, and so on.
So let's go from there. 12s, you started playing well. 14s, you won the nationals. So that pretty much puts you as the top junior in the country at that point. At 14, are you? How often? You mentioned 3-4 times a week. Are you starting to pick it up now? How many hours a day you play? How many times a week?
Yeah, I'm starting to play almost every day at this point, but still keep it fun. I'm still doing, at Thousand Oaks at the time. I'm going to clinics Tuesday, Thursday evenings from 4 to 6, and I'm taking 1 to 2 private lessons a week, and maybe one other day I'm hitting with my friend, but we're messing around the whole time. It's not a very focused practice. But then, I am starting to go to some more national tournaments around the U.S. and kind of see where my game matches up against the top players. And at that point, that's when I started thinking, all right, tennis is fun. I'm good. If I keep this level up, I can go play in college. So then kind of slowly started noticing what colleges you want to go to. But that's kind of was the path of how that kind of went.
16 through 18, did you continue that pace of just kind of being at the top of the junior ranks, or was there any struggle there for you during those years?
I'd like to say there was struggle. There wasn't a ton. I mean, fortunately, I was good, and I won the 16 and under nationals. And that's when you win the 16 and under nationals in Kalamazoo, you get a wild card into the Junior U.S. Open. And so I didn't know Junior U.S. Open, Junior French Open, international juniors existed, and neither did my parents, because we never played it. So you won it, and then all of a sudden, you were awarded. You get a wild card in the Junior U.S. Open, and my mom like, what is that? And so I was able to go then play in the Junior U.S. Open, and then the following year the Junior French Open and Junior Wimbledon, and kind of get exposed to some of those international big events and pro events, because you play those events at Roland Garros, at Wimbledon, at Flushing Meadows, so you're there around the pros, and I was having success in those as well. And so 16, 17, 18, I slowly started playing more junior events, kind of became one of the top 10, top 15 juniors in the world. Even though it was kind of new to me at the time, that might have been something to help me. I was so naive, and so are my parents, and you go to these events, and you might play the number 6 ranked junior in the world, but I was like, who is this guy? I didn't even know. I've never even known these rankings existed. And so that was almost helpful, I think.
That's so interesting, because you see so many kids these days. I mean, whether they're 11 years old, 12, especially with social media now, they know everything. They know every tournament out there, every player, exactly where they need to go. So you think it may have even been a little bit easier on you mentally to be able to just go and play your tennis.
Definitely. I mean, I remember that first year at the U.S. Open, my second round, I played Jeremy Shardy, who's a great tour player. No clue who he was. Great player. Third round, I played Marin Cilic, and I beat him. Again, no clue who he is. And then I ultimately ended up losing to Andy Murray in 3 sets in the quarterfinals. But same thing, like, this guy from Scotland, I don't know who he is, but it's a different mindset going in. If I could, and most people, if you could have that mindset all the time, it would probably be helpful. Like, I don't know how good this guy is. I don't know his results. Instead, like you were saying today, everyone I'm sure will be like, oh my gosh, I play Andy Murray. He's a 3 ranked junior in the world. He's had all these results. I never even knew how to look at that back then.
Now, you obviously had a tremendous junior career. Now there comes that point there where you're looking at college, which is so beneficial to the development of juniors as a person as well as their game. But you were so good, you actually had the option. Now, do I consider the pro circuit? Now, was that a big discussion with you and your parents? Was it an easy decision? Well, how did that go?
Yeah, so when I was 17, I signed with USC, University of Southern California, who had, as you were there. They, arguably got the richest tennis tradition of any college. They had a run there where they won 5 championships in a span of 10 years. And so I signed to go play tennis there. And really kind of the summer before school started, I had a lot of success at the challenger level. And for those of you who don't know, it's kind of a level below the ATP tour. And I had won 3 of those challengers, and then was awarded wild cards into a few tour events, one in Los Angeles, one in New Haven at the time, and then the U.S. Open. And I won my first round in all those. And so by the time school started, I was probably ranked about 150 in the world. And so it really wasn't a difficult decision at that time. I know my parents, I think, were urging me more to actually go pro. Don't go to college. Like, look, this is a great opportunity. You've got momentum. You're good. And so, like I said, I was ranked high, so it wasn't a tough decision. And then quickly I was into the top 100. And because that kind of went so quickly for me, it made me feel really good about my decision. I think if I would have hovered between 400 and 500 for a few years, not gone to college, you would have been second guessing yourself. But because I had that success early, it made me feel good about my decision.
You talk about that time. I actually remember, I think you had come over to my parents' house. We were practicing one day. It was right around that time, and Peter Smith, who was the coach at the time, who I was fortunate enough to play for after we had won a title at USC, I remember him calling me and saying, Sam, sign with us. You got to try to get him to, talk to him, stay, how much you enjoyed it. And I'm like, Coach, I loved it. And I know he would come there, but the guys won all these events on the pro circuit. I guess it did make it a little bit more clear cut for you.
Yeah. And Peter and I are still great friends. And he's actually, before the coronavirus thing kind of happened, he was actually been helping me a little bit on the practice court. So once this is all done, he'll be back with me again. And he's not too bad, because the 4 years that I would have actually gone to USC, they won the championship all 4 of those years. So I could have only hurt the team. I would have only hurt the team if I went there.
Well, Peter's an absolute gem of a guy. Now, Sam, you come on, you're kind of a little bit green-eyed. You're having a great start, winning as you come on the tour. What's the biggest shock for you? Is it the level of play when you get there, or is it more the day in and day out, the professionalism? What's the biggest adjustment there?
It was the day in, day out professionalism and the international travel for weeks at a time. I remember the day that I said, all right, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to go pro. Something did click in my head where I started to take tennis more seriously then. I remember the first day of practice, it was like, all right, let's put your head down. Let's work a little harder. Let's train a little better. Let's eat a little better. Let's go to sleep a little earlier. And so that came naturally for me. And it really wasn't until about kind of 6 months into that first year where I started to go play in Europe a little more and a little more on clay courts. And all of a sudden you lose first round on a Monday, practice all week. Lose first round on a Monday, practice all week. And you start doing that 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row. It gets difficult. And that first kind of year for me, this was before you had the iPhone and it was easy to communicate. So you're over there with a coach, you just feel a little lonely and you're losing week in, week out. And so that was kind of the toughest part for me early on.
Tennis-wise, was it a big jump for you, or did you feel, you know what, I'm playing with the best and this is where I belong?
No, I mean, I felt like I could play with the best and this is where I belong. I did well in those challengers early. That first summer, I got a wild card in the Cincinnati Master Series, and I played Nadal first round and took a set off him. Yeah. I had taken a set off Gaston Gaudio, who at the time was top 10 in the world, and so I had glimmers of me playing great, where it gave me the confidence to say, all right, I feel like I can kind of go toe to toe with almost everyone. Maybe not beat these top guys, but I'm not far off.
When people ask, about milestones in your life that you look back on, sometimes I think about a big match that showed me I had a lot more within myself than maybe I thought I had. And sometimes it's just meeting certain people. I remember when I met Venus and Serena and became very close with them, kind of changed the way I thought a little bit, kind of learning so much from them. Have there been any points in your life where you've either met people or gone through certain experiences that have really shaped your future?
There's nothing too specific, kind of like you're saying, meeting Venus and Serena, but it just kind of, for me, it's really just been a body of work over the kind of, I've been a pro now, this is my 14th year, but it really started before. It started when I was 15, kind of when I started taking it a little more serious. It's, the 16, 17 years of playing, and I'm a pretty big believer, if you just kind of put in the work every day and do the right thing, good things will happen over time. And I kind of feel like that it was more of a slow, steady process for me, rather than kind of an aha moment where I met someone or did something.
Now, Sam, you've been a stalwart in the top 50 for most of your career, but that first big break for any tennis player is, man, I got to get into the top 100. I got to get into the top 100. Were there any ranking marks that you really had your eyes on when you first came on, and then all of a sudden it was top 50, then the top 20? Was that ever going through your head?
Not a lot, actually. And kind of going back to what I said earlier, I don't think I knew how the rankings worked my first year on tour. So I would do well in a tournament, and I didn't really know where to even look up my ranking or how it worked. But I do remember kind of the beginning of 2007, I was, before the Australian Open started, I was ranked about 125. And I kind of was like, all right, after this year, I want to be in the top 75, because that allows me to play any tournament I want, pretty much. You're in all the Master Series, all the slams. You can kind of pick your schedule a little bit. And then, yeah, then I remember from there, I wasn't someone who put a ton of pressure on, all right, I want to be 50. And once I hit top 50, then I want to go to top 25. I just kind of out there and played the tournaments and enjoyed myself and didn't think too much about the ranking. As long as I was in the tournaments that I wanted to get in, I was pretty happy because it gave me a chance to win them.
What do you think is the best way to go about it for juniors? I mean, let's say you're a 15-year-old kid out there. Should you be setting goals for yourself, or is it more about improving your weaknesses, focusing on your game every day? I've heard both schools of thought.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of both. I mean, you definitely want to have some goals as far as ranking goes because you want to be able to play the other good players. You want to be able to get into the good tournaments, and really, that's the only way to test out the things that you've been working on. So I do think there's a little bit of both, and that's something juniors and their coaches and parents need to get together and talk about. The plan and the course is different for everyone, but I'm always a big believer in growing up playing junior tennis, play your age division, because I think it is good to beat people that you should beat.
Yep.
For me, especially that first year in the pros, everyone's ranked higher than me. I have no pressure on any match. But now that I'm ranked, then you all of a sudden fast forward a few years, I'm ranked 25. Now all of a sudden I'm expected to win 75% of the matches that I've played. And I think a lot of juniors, it's important to know what the feeling is of, all right, I'm supposed to win this match. Let's go out and win it, no matter how you can do it. So I do think there's a way that you can find both things as far as ranking goals and improving your game.
Very helpful. Sam, talk about U.S. tennis a little bit, because you mentioned, we grew up here in Southern California, such a tremendous tennis history. And then when you finally break it out of juniors and get on the tour, again, U.S. tennis has just been so incredible. And even, the time you played with Marty and Andy, and God, there are countless guys who you had to, battle alongside with as teammates and across the net. How did it feel to be a part of that fraternity?
It's been amazing. Look, U.S. tennis. I mean, the women are in a class of their own. They're the best. They're the best worldwide.
Yeah.
As far as the men, we don't quite have the titles that they have, but it's been a solid group. And like you said, for a lot of years, kind of my first 3, 4, 5 years on tour, Andy Roddick, James Blake, Marty Fish, Robbie Ginepri were, Andy and James were staples in the top 10. Marty crept into the top 10. Robbie was right there the whole time. And then now kind of the last 3/4 of my career, you've got John Isner, Jack Sock, Steve Johnson, and now the younger guys with Taylor Fritz and Riley Opelka. It's been a rich tradition. We may not have guys winning Grand Slams, but we've got guys that are consistently in the show week in and week out, and they're great guys and they work hard, and hopefully, look, I hope I can win a Grand Slam, but if not me, I hope one of these other guys can.
Now I'm going to get into something that I'm sure a lot of the people watching may feel, even if they don't want to admit it out loud, and I'm going to ask your opinion, because you know what, you've been so great with sharing everything today. Now, when you have a group like that, a lot of times I've seen in juniors, players get so worked up. They're like, oh, I don't want to lose to this guy, when they're from the same country or whatever. Has it put extra pressure on you, or has it just kind of spurred you on to have that kind of competition in the group?
I would say it's a little bit of both. I mean, look, you always want to beat your fellow countrymen. I've played John Isner a bunch, and Steve Johnson and Jack Sock and Andy and James. You always want to beat those guys, but it's always awkward the first or second time. I remember the first time I played Andy and the first time I played John. It's like, we're friends. This is awkward. We both want to win. But now that I've played all those guys 5, 6, 7 times, it's not that weird. It gets better over time, but it's definitely something I would say that's been better, that it's pushed us a little more, because you want to make sure you're at the same events with these guys week in and week out, and you want to be able to make sure you're ranked high enough where you could play doubles together and that you're on the Davis Cup team together. So you never want someone to get too far ahead of you, because you want to be there right with them, kind of enjoying the moment together.
Now, a lot of these guys you've played doubles with, you've had tremendous success with, including John Isner, probably the one that sticks out to me the most. players growing up in juniors, would you advise them not to just play singles, develop your doubles game as well?
No, I'd say play singles. I played a little bit of doubles in juniors, not much. I don't even know if you could play doubles in the juniors, but um, for the most part, if you want to go out and be a pro tennis player, singles is where it's at. Singles is what's going to develop your game. Doubles, I love playing doubles now, and like you said, so does John Isner, so does Steve Johnson. I think a lot of times we play doubles because it's fun, and it can help your singles game.
Yep.
But for the most part, singles is where the notoriety is. Singles, when you talk about the greatest players ever, it's singles players.
Now you talk about a big singles run you had. I'll never forget it. Wimbledon semifinals there. Had an unbelievable match. I'll never forget against Andy Murray on probably the most famous court in all of the world. Now, first, before I would like to get into your mindset there, but tell us about that run. A lot of things have to come into place, especially at a tournament that only happens once a year, and the Grand Slams are only, of course, 4 times a year. How did that 2 weeks happen for you?
I feel like over the years, and I think a lot of guys would say this, you tend to play well at the same event over and over. There's certain stops, certain courts during the year, certain cities where you're like, I'm comfortable here, I like it here, and I'm going to play well here. And Wimbledon's just kind of been that for me over the years. And even the year before the semifinal run, I made the quarterfinals and played Djokovic and beat him. And so I was just comfortable there. And tennis is, in most sports, it's a game. When you've got momentum, you got to keep it going. And I just had a lot of confidence that week. Early on, I had won a 5-setter against Tsonga, then won a 5-setter against Anderson, and then another 5-setter against Murray. So it just kind of, I had things on my side, and it's such a fun, amazing place to play. And I like playing on the grass. It's a great place to be. And so it was just kind of everything was working for me those 2 weeks.
Sam, let's just get a little bit into your preparation. Let's pick that Andy Murray match, for example, just because I think it was such a special match. The 24 hours leading up to something like that, what's your preparation like?
So preparation is always different in a match like that, where I'm into the semifinals of Wimbledon, and that even though it's semifinals of a smaller tournament, obviously you're feeling good, you're confident, you've won a handful of matches to get there. So I don't change the status quo that much. On the off day, the day before, I would have hit for 30, 40 minutes. And if after 20 minutes I'm hitting up and down the middle, and I would have told my coach at the time, look, I feel good, like let's wrap it up and go home, I'm ready to go tomorrow, I would say that. Before a tournament would start, maybe before that first round match, I might put in a little extra prep work on the court, like, hey, let's fine tune the backhand, let's get a few more returns, let's do a few more little things here and there before you get going. But once you start getting into a tournament, I just do little things here and there, and I don't hit that much. I want to save it for the court. And usually, like I said, if you're 3, 4, 5 matches into a tournament, you're probably feeling pretty good, and you don't need to do a lot of extra work on the court.
In practice in general, now that you bring it up, are you more of a repetitions kind of guy? You just got to get out there, hit 1,000 backhands, 1,000 forehands, or is it a little bit more specific for you? You like to work on certain drills?
It's changed over the years. I would definitely say those first 5-6 years on tour, from the time I was 18 to 25, it was a lot of repetition, 2-on-1s, just kind of those drills that just hit your lungs, hit your legs. They're not fun. We're going to go out there, we're going to put one guy in a corner and move you side to side for 2 hours, and that's going to be practice. And then as the time's gone on, I'm 32 now, I need to take care of my body a little more. So if I were to do drills like that over and over again, my body and my knees, I deteriorate a little bit. So now I'm a little more precise with what I do. I try to do drills that, are a little more technical, and I try to save the physicality for the matches.
Interesting. Has your physical training changed over the years as well? What do you do off the court?
It has, yeah. Again, I used to do a ton of running. I would do a lot of track work in my young 20s, run 200s, 400s, 800s. And now, and also I'm a tall guy, as you guys know, so I can only do so much running before my knees hurt. And so now, as far as physical training goes, I'm also someone that I don't love spending time in the gym. That's something that, I can be honest with. I don't look forward to going in there and doing bench press and then hitting the core. So I work a lot with Gina Ball. She's the S&C at the USTA, and she's done a great job of making workouts fun for me. So now a lot of times when I go in there, we'll do a lot of drills where it might be a cardiovascular drill, but it's a basketball drill. It's shoot 20 layups, and then we're going to shoot 23 pointers for every 2 that you miss. It's a suicide down and back, and then it's box jumps to lunges. It's just a lot of different fun activities over and over again. Ladder drill to a football catch to kind of keep me stimulated and keep it fun and exciting. Because, like I said, I've been doing it a long time now. It's tough to go in there and just do the same old workouts every day.
What a brilliant lesson for everyone listening out there. You see so many coaches. It's do this, and it ends up getting monotonous after a while. But if you can incorporate fun into that, it just makes the growth and the progress something that you actually want to do. Sam, looking at where you're at now, if you could change anything from the past, what would it be? Or is there stuff that you think about differently now? Compare the way you approach things now to when you were 18.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think kind of when I was 18, I was naive, like you said, and I didn't worry about rankings and the point system and things as much. And I worry about that a little more now. So I wish, I wish actually I could go back to that mindset even more so when I was younger, where I didn't care as much. It's a little harder when you're older and I've got a wife and a little baby and you're trying to plan your schedule, and I want to make sure I get certain tournaments. But I definitely think I had more of a I don't care attitude when I was younger. That was very helpful. And I wish, honestly, it's kind of like the reverse answer of your question. I wish I could have more of that attitude now. Even though it's tough to have that kind of I don't care attitude, even though a lot of times that's a very helpful attitude in sports.
No, you've done such a great job at allowing us to look back. Looking forward, can you tell us what is in the future for Sam Querrey?
I mean, gosh, right? I don't know what's in the future for anyone right now.
That's true.
I'm just hoping that the coronavirus and the world can find a vaccine, find a solution for this sooner rather than later, and tennis can get back on track. When I first started at 18, it seemed like guys you could play till about you were 30 years old, and if you played till 30, you're like, oh my God, that's a great run. And then and now that number is kind of 35, and it seems like guys are playing till they're 35 years old, and even 36, 37, 38. When you look at Federer and Feliciano Lopez, Fernando Verdasco, a lot of guys. So I hope that I've got 4 or 5 more good years in me where I'm in the Grand Slams and in the Master Series, because I feel like I have the kind of game that can have a big upside and beat some of these guys and have some good runs.
Sam, before I open it up to some questions from everyone that's been watching, I just gotta ask you now that you are a parent, do you foresee yourself being a tennis parent?
So my son's name is Ford. If he wants to play tennis, I'll support him, do whatever he needs. I selfishly hope he doesn't play tennis, because I'd like to go watch and cheer on a different sport for the rest of my life. I think I'll be tennised out in a few years. But like I said, if he likes it and gravitates towards it, that's fun. That's great. But I hope he does baseball, basketball. I hope he's a musician, an actor, something different. It's just so selfishly I have something else to look forward to and watch.
Is there 1 or 2 tips you could sort of give? I mean, we've been talking about all the players out there, but the tennis parents, is there something you'd sort of like to give them? Coming up as a player, I wish more tennis parents did this or that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's helpful to be a little more hands off and let your kids do other. You don't have to. I feel like I see so many kids at 10, 11, 12, 13 years old are 100% committed to tennis all the time. I only do tennis, and maybe that's because the parents push them to that. Maybe because the kids like it. If the kids like it, great. If the kids want to do other things, I honestly think until you're 15 or so, you can go play other sports. You can you can have spring break with your family. You can take a week away from tennis. You can go have fun with your friends and do other things. And your tennis game's not going to suffer one bit.
Okay, very good. Now, Sam, listen, we're going to pull it in. We're going to pull in some questions now from this great audience that we have. But I believe we got a special guest for the first question. Can we fire up the special guest?
Hey, it's Steve Johnson from Redondo Beach, and these questions are for Sam. Couple good ones for you, I hope. One, what's it like making the transition from being a junior player in Southern California to kind of winning challengers and foregoing your college experience? And, how was that transition for you? And would you do anything differently? And my second question would be, what's it like playing, your friends out there competing? I know a lot of people watching probably have a hard time playing some of their good friends. And if you had any tips or anything for that matter. So thanks again for answering those questions. See ya.
Steve Johnson coming in with some solid stuff there, Sam.
Yeah, like he said, I'll answer his second question first. Stevie was a groomsman in my wedding. I was a groomsman in his wedding. We were both groomsmen in John Isner's wedding. So it's tough playing your friends. There's no way around it. I know I kind of addressed this earlier. At the end of the day, if you're in the juniors playing your friends, all I suggest is be fair out there. Don't cheat your friend. Don't call the lines tight. Be fair. And at the end of the day, make sure everyone's friends when the match is over, because, having lifelong friends and having friendships is more important than winning a tennis match during your career. And so, with guys like John Isner and Steve Johnson, we've beaten and lost to each other over the years. But most importantly, 20 years from now, we're hopefully still going to be friends. And, you never want to lose that. And as far as the transition goes from juniors to pros, it's different for everyone. I think the quicker you can kind of get through the futures and challengers and get onto the pro tour, the easier it becomes. That's obviously easier said than done, but I feel with a lot of guys, the longer you hang around in futures and challengers, it's a little bit like quicksand. It gets harder to get out of those and get into the tour events. So if you're going to make the decision to go pro and kind of take that path in life, give it your all, especially early on. Those first few years at 18, 19, 20, 21 are so crucial to kind of put your foot down, give it all you got, and try to quickly work your way up the rankings to the bigger tournaments as fast as you can.
Brilliant stuff. Now, Sam, bear with me here. I'm going to butcher this young man's name, I'm sure. First name I think I got. But anyway, a question from William Patoxny.
Right.
William, if I butchered that, I apologize. But very interesting question from him. He's asked, how did your parents balancing developing you as a young tennis player with your potential while still allowing you to be a kid? Is that a little bit of what you talked about, not going too hard too early?
Yeah, and, kind of going back to what I said, too, they didn't have a tennis background, so they didn't know what to do, and they were so easygoing. As long as I tried hard and gave a good effort at whatever I was doing, they were happy. So, I could have been winning all these tennis tournaments at 12, 13 years old, and I could have said, Mom, I want to go play baseball. And they would have said, sure, go play. As they weren't pushing tennis on me that much. I went to normal school all the way through high school, and I think they were more, they were worried about just raising a good kid who was having fun and trying hard and just being happy. And I think that's very important. Just raise a son or daughter who seems happy and not one that you really want to be a tennis player.
And you're so fortunate to have parents like that. It reminds me of something that Kobe Bryant, a hero of mine, rest in peace, had said when he was a kid. His father told him, whether you win or lose, I still absolutely love you. And that made all the difference for him to be able to go out and play freely, so he didn't have to worry about winning or losing. And it seems like you had that kind of atmosphere. So that's just wonderful.
Definitely, yeah. And especially I'm with my dad, it was really, like I said, just the effort. If you go out there, I don't care if you're playing a tennis match, a baseball game, if you're writing an essay in school, just give a good effort, and no matter what, I'm going to be proud of you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to be happy, and that's really the most important thing.
Boys and girls, the man is dropping some pearls out here. Hope everyone's paying attention. Okay, Loba Nature with our next question. How did you control your emotions on the court?
Whew, that's a tough one. I don't always control my emotions. There's been times where I've yelled out, I've broken rackets, like pretty much all players have. And honestly, that's still something that I'm trying to figure out how to deal with. There's times now where my emotions get the best of me, and I think any player would say that. But it's something I think that you got to work on in practice. It's obviously tougher in matches, but if you can practice a lot, and if you feel confident with your game going into a match, that confidence is going to allow you to be more even keeled and less nervous, and able to handle your emotions a little more. And whether that's, hey, I'm going out to the court and physically I feel like I can play forever, that's going to calm you down. Or, hey, I know that I've put a ton of work on the practice court. At least for me, win or lose, if I know I did everything right, it would allow me to kind of be a little more calmer on the court and be happy with the product that I put out.
So it all starts in practice. It certainly does. From Devin Prakash. Now, Devin, we're going to have to talk about this later. Stealing my name for your last name. Sam, how do you persevere when your results don't match your dedication?
That's a good question right there. How do you persevere when your results don't match your dedication? So that's something that everyone can go through. You know, when like, look, I feel like I'm doing everything right. I'm working hard, and it's, look, these last few tournaments just aren't going my way. For me, if that's happening, I try to look for any little kind of glimmer of hope. If I'm playing a match, a lot of times, there's been a lot of times in my career where I've not played well, and I've scrapped out a match 7-6 in the third. And, my coach, Craig Boynton, a few years back always told me, you never know what's on the other side of a win. So no matter how you can scrap through a win, you can get through a match winning ugly, and that next day it's a fresh day. You could be playing a lot better. A lot of times, going back to what I said about doubles, I don't consider myself a doubles player. I like playing doubles, but you can get confidence from winning matches in doubles. Wins are wins, and no matter what level it is, that can give you some confidence too. And I'm also a believer that if you do the right things and put in the work, good things will happen over time. So you could have a tough run of 2 to 3 months, but over a large period of time, if you put in the work, good things will happen.
All right. Well, we got a few more good ones here, Sam. Sri Chucks. First, he says, congrats on a long career. Certainly has been a very long, successful career. He's asking, what goes on in your mind before your first and second serve? I think very appropriate. One of the best serves in the game.
Yeah, I mean, look, that all depends on the moment. If it's, early in the first set, it's 1-2, 30 all. My first serve, the less I can think about things, the better. If I'm not thinking about my serve that much, that means I'm in a good rhythm. Things are feeling good. But for the most part, I go up there with my first serve, and I don't think that much. I pick a spot and I hit it. I only really start to think about things when something triggers, like, all right, I've missed 5 first serves in a row, or this one's not feeling good. That's when I start to kind of pull back, and I'll have 2 or 3 little kind of tips that I'll always remember my serve. I'll try to keep my body in line. I'll try to make sure my toss is in the right spot, not too far in front, not too far behind. And then I'll go for a bigger target. And so I don't want to overload myself with information, but a lot of times for first serve, those are kind of the tips that I think about. And then for second serve, there's not too much to it to me. A lot of times, if my second serve, if things are feeling good again, I'm not thinking about it. If my second serve feels a little off, the thing with the second serve is you want to go after it more a lot of times than you go after the first serve. And
interesting.
And you'll want to generate more spin on the second serve, and also you'll feel good about yourself if you go after a second serve and miss it, as opposed to not going after and miss it. I'm someone who believes that you'll feel better about yourself. You'll be able to live with the results a little more if you go after your shots, and the result doesn't end up the way you like it, but at least you'll feel better inside.
Peace of mind. That's what we all want. Hari Raghavan is asking you, how do you get over a tough loss? Are you a go to the locker room, smash all the rackets, or are you a go to a cheap meal and have some pizza and ice cream kind of guy?
I'm definitely more of like a cheat meal person. I would go have some like ice cream or hamburgers, whatever you can think of. It might sit with me for a couple hours, but the beauty to tennis, as opposed to other sports, you've got a clean start every week.
Right.
So you could lose first round 10 weeks in a row. You can lose a big match 5 weeks in a row. You've got a fresh start every week. So that's something that you always have to remember playing tennis, that no matter how bad it's going or how tough a loss is, you've got another opportunity the next week to potentially win a tournament.
You absolutely do. One of the best things about our sport, certainly. Now, Sam, I think this is a perfect one to end on. Christopher Soderman is asking you, now I hope you can give us the lowdown here. What are your best and worst tennis habits on and off the court?
All right. Best and worst tennis habits. I'll start with the worst tennis habits.
Okay, good. Okay.
It's definitely not stretching. That's something. I don't think I stretched until I was about 25 years old.
Oh, no.
And to this day, I still stretch a little. I mean, when I'm on the road, I travel now full time with a physiotherapist, so I will stretch on the road. It is something I am not good at when I'm home on my own. A lot of times I'll practice for 2 hours and I'll just get right in the car and drive home, and it's just a terrible habit. And honestly, I don't know if I'm going to change it at this point. 14 years in. Another habit, it's probably dipping into the cookie jar. I'm like a big dessert guy, and so
nice.
A lot of time, especially at a Grand Slam, I'm a little better. Not a Grand Slam, I'll be like, it's 2 out of 3. I can have a little ice cream or some cookies. Like, it's not going to make a difference. So those are probably the bad habits. The good habits and the good things I feel like I'm proud of is I feel like pretty much every day since I've been a pro, like, I'll get up and go to practice. There's not a lot of times where I'm just like, God, even if there's times when I don't feel like going, I'll get up and go. I'll just put in the work, do the right things. And then as far as, kind of sharing, I feel like I've done a great job sharing these experiences over the years with my family and friends. They've been incredibly supportive and great to me. And so it's fun. Tennis is an individual sport. Yeah. So this isn't really a habit, but I'll always try to have friends and family, whatever tournaments you're at or around the world, be able to come and watch, because I want them to be a part of this with me, because, like I said, it's an individual sport, but there's so many other people around that have helped me along the way.
Sam, this has been unbelievable, man. Really appreciate you taking the time. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to know you for quite some time, but to open up, I think a lot of people would have learned a lot from this, and also just an absolute pleasure to sharing your journey. And you're such a positive guy, and we need that right now. So lots of love, man.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Sam, thank you very much. And everyone out there who's been watching this, enjoying this, remember, this was our first episode. We're just going to get the ball rolling. A lot of steam coming up ahead. Our next one will be coming up next Tuesday, April 7th. We'll have Allison Risk on the All Access series, my sister-in-law, and number 19 in the world. So lots and lots coming your way. Hope you enjoyed it. Send us a message. I'm on Instagram, Prakash Amritraj, Twitter. Follow my UTR, and we'll see you next time.